Hillsboro, Oregon, January 27, 2023. When 56-year-old Kenny Fandrich was found dead in his car inside his employee's parking garage, one disturbing detail stood out. This man had been caught on camera tampering with the security system footage shortly before Kenny's death. Could he be connected to the murder? This story begins in Oregon City, Oregon, a community of just over 37,500 people as of 2020. Nestled about a dozen miles south of Portland, the city covers a modest 9.29 square miles and is known for marking the ends of the Oregon Trail. In 1993, Dr. Stephen Milner graduated from Oregon State University with his Doctor of Veterinary Medicine degree. 7 years later, in January 2000, he opened Milner Veterinary Hospital in Oregon City. Over the years, he built more than just a practice, he built a community. Clients described him as absolutely amazing, someone they trusted so deeply that they referred friends, family, and anyone who needed to care for their animals. His professional accomplishments didn't go unnoticed either. In 2010, Dr. Milner received the Jim Charlton Memorial Award, recognizing his dedication to veterinary medicine and his support for rescue organizations like Golden Bond Rescue. His clinic grew to include 2 additional veterinarians, 5 vet technicians, and 3 receptionists, a testament to the trust he earned and the care he provided. After opening Milner Veterinary Hospital, a woman named Tanya Fandrich became one of his first employees, working as a front desk receptionist. Tanya was married to Kenny Fandrich, a 56-year-old contract pipe fitter for Intel at the time of his death. Tanya and Kenny married in 1993 after first being introduced to each other by a mutual friend in Dutch Harbor, Alaska. In 1996, Tanya and Kenny moved to Oregon City, back to the state where Kenny was born. Away from work, Kenny was known for something much simpler and more personal, his love of animals. Friends and family described both Kenny and Tanya as true animal lovers, the kind of people whose home was always full of life. They cared for 6 dogs, 2 cats, and even a pair of goats, each one with a reflection of the warmth and compassion that shaped their everyday lives. Though Tanya and Kenny shared a deep love, their relationship was far from perfect. Alcohol played a major part in some of the troubles in their relationship throughout the years, resulting in fights where police were called numerous times. At one point, Kenny was unfaithful to Tanya, adding further strain to their relationship, though she ultimately chose to forgive him. For nearly 2 decades, Tanya Fandrich and Dr. Stephen Milner maintained a strictly professional relationship, but in 2017, that dynamic shifted. Tanya later admitted that loneliness had begun to take hold in her life. Both she and Kenny struggled with heavy drinking, and Kenny's work often kept him on the road, living in an RV at job sites for extended periods of time. During this time, Milner, a man twice divorced, began showing her attention that went beyond friendship. That attention eventually led to a brief 5-month affair, a relationship that would later become a key part of the tragic events that later unfolded. Kenny and others found out about the affair when Tanya was seen leaving a co-worker's wedding with Milner. Tanya stayed over at Milner's house and returned the next morning to her home with Kenny nowhere in sight. Kenny and Tanya later reconciled their relationship, with Tanya officially ending the affair. However, this was a start where things began to take an obsessive turn for Milner. What began as an affair spiraled into years of harassment, threats, and fear for Kenny and Tanya Fandrich. In late 2017, Kenny received an anonymous letter telling him he should do everyone a favor, go back to drinking himself into his own demise. In September 2018, the harassment escalated dramatically. One evening, when Tanya and Kenny were returning home, they discovered a man lying under Kenny's Dodge Ram vehicle. The man fled, leaving behind a mysterious black box attached to the car. The police were called, and the Clackamas County Bomb Squad responded and investigated the black box under Kenny's car. They determined it was a GPS tracker. Milner later admitted to placing the device, claiming he was having an affair with Tanya and was merely protecting her from Kenny. Tanya denied having a current affair with Milner when talking with the officers. According to Clackamas County Sheriff's Deputy Zachary Kearsay, he didn't believe Tanya due to her calm demeanor and flat affect during the interview, and states she seemed out of character for someone in her position. He ultimately decided not to pursue charges. By 2019, Milner's actions grew more aggressive. One day, Milner was observed and heard screaming at Kenny in front of his and Tanya's home, stating something along the lines of having tools as a veterinarian to cut him up into little pieces. This made Kenny and Tanya fearful, and a couple months later, Kenny filed for a temporarily stalking order of protection as Milner was becoming increasingly threatening. Kenny and Tanya both had enough of Milner's behavior, which led to Tanya quitting her job working for Milner at his veterinary clinic for almost 2 decades. In 2020, Milner retired as a veterinarian and sold his practice, resulting in more time to surveil and stalk Kenny and Tanya. In 2021, tensions in the Fandrich household boiled over. During a domestic dispute, Tanya Fandrich reportedly slashed Kenny's ear. Kenny called the police and Tanya was arrested for the incident. Unbeknownst to Tanya, Milner was there and posted her $25,000 bond. He waited for her in the parking lot and then sheltered her at his home for a couple of days. It was never determined how Milner found out that Tanya was arrested. Tanya later insisted that nothing romantic happened during that time. The case was later dismissed, and Kenny and Tanya reconciled again. In March 2022, the harassment reached a dangerous new level. Kenny Fandrich was driving from Oregon City to his job in Hillsborough, a 45-minute commute, when he realized he was being followed. Alarmed, he called 911. When police arrived, they were briefed on the long and troubling history between Kenny and Dr. Stephen Milner. Milner admitted to following Kenny, claiming that Tanya had told him she was in danger because Kenny was abusive. On police body camera, Milner told officers,
"I'm the only person who gives a and I'm not allowed to get
Authorities made it clear Milner was not to have any further contact with Kenny or Tanya, or he would face jail time. Following the incident, Kenny filed for and was granted a new stalking protection order, a legal attempt to put an end to years of harassment. A couple weeks later, under immense stress and fearing that his wife was being unfaithful with Milner, Kenny crashed his car while driving towards Milner's home. The mountain pressure was starting to take a toll on Kenny's mental health. In August that year, Kenny found another tracking device under his car, and Milner was this time criminally charged. A month later, Kenny filed a civil lawsuit against Milner for infliction of emotional distress and evasion of privacy, seeking compensation for hundreds of thousands of dollars. A few months later, after a routine visit to a Jiffy Lube, a mechanic found 6 GPS tracking devices attached to Tanya's car. Police determined they were all registered to Dr. Stephen Milner with his address, phone number, and credit card information. Milner was arrested and charged with 2 misdemeanors, violating a stalking protection order and unlawful use of a GPS device. He was released while awaiting trial, and for the first time in years, Tanya and Kenny heard nothing from him for a few months. For a moment, they allowed themselves to hope it was finally over, even dreaming of retiring to the coast to escape the shadow of Milner's obsession. On January 27, 2023, inside of Intel's Ronler Acres campus parking garage, Kenny Fandrich was found dead in his black Honda Civic. Kenny was discovered seated in the driver's seat of his car, his belongings placed in the back, initially looking to have died of natural causes. However, a closer inspection revealed Kenny had been brutally murdered. The autopsy revealed Kenny died from blunt compression trauma to his neck. After the discovery of Kenny's body, all eyes were on Stephen Milner. A man resembling Stephen Milner was observed on security cameras wearing dark-tinted glasses, a yellow hard hat, and a black mask using black spray paint to cover the cameras in the Intel parking garage before Kenny's death. That same man was observed entering the garage in a maroon van and parking next to Kenny's vehicle, waiting for him to end his shift. Authorities believe Kenny was attacked and strangled in the back of that van, and a search began to find out where the van is located along with the registered owner. However, Milner did not drive a maroon van, he drove a white SUV, but this didn't deter investigators from looking into Milner. On January 31st, 2023, 4 days after Kenny's death, authorities asked Milner to come in for a routine check-in related to the ongoing stalking case, but authorities had an ulterior motive. Investigators were looking for any signs of recent injury to Milner. One person noticed something unusual. Milner was wearing makeup, apparently to cover a scratch on his nose. Moments after leaving the police station, Milner was detained and later charged with second-degree murder and stalking. Police obtained a warrant and searched Milner's properties. Inside his nightstand, investigators discovered personal items connected to Tanya Fandrich, photos, love notes, and women's underwear believed to belong to her. Analysis of Milner's white SUV revealed GPS data and computer records that placed him at a Home Depot on the day of the murder. Home Depot security cameras show Milner's white SUV parking next to a maroon minivan and him getting into the van and then driving out of the parking lot. Further investigation uncovered Milner used 2 burner cars, the maroon van and a blue sedan with temporary license plates to try to throw off authorities. These 2 vehicles have been flagged in the past month by the Home Depot security for suspicious activity for being parked for extended periods of time. On December 12, 2022, approximately 6 weeks before Kenny's death, Milner was shown on the Home Depot security footage purchasing red tint safety goggles that looked very similar to the ones the man was wearing who spray painted the parking garage cameras. Investigators also noticed a prominent crease between Milner's and the suspect's eyebrows that showed great resemblance. The question is, where is the maroon minivan? Home Depot security took down the VIN number of the vehicle, which allowed investigators to get a hit when searching their database. They found the vehicle was abandoned a few days after Kenny's death, later on Highway I-5 Portland. Unfortunately, the van was towed and sold to a scrapyard company. By the time investigators inquired about the vehicle, the van was already destroyed 1 week prior. The evidence against Stephen Milner doesn't stop there. His DNA was also found on Kenny's hands. On January 22, 2025, almost 2 years to the date after Kenny's death, the trial against Stephen Milner for the murder of Kenny Fandrich began. Stephen Milner claimed that he was trying to protect Tanya Fandrich to prevent her from being harmed. Milner explains he was trying to get Kenny arrested for driving while he was drunk or driving without a license, but the confrontation turned deadly. Milner admitted to spray painting the security cameras inside the Intel's parking garage that day. According to Milner, Kenny spotted him in the maroon van, prompting a physical altercation, claiming self-defense. Milner described getting out of the van, approaching Kenny, and a struggle ensued. He pushed Kenny against the car and then inside his vehicle. He hit up against the car and then kind of tripped at the same time, and I kept pushing, Milner later recounted. The case went to trial, and after 6 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict. Milner was found guilty of murdering Kenny Fandrich, as well as multiple stalking charges, bringing justice after years of harassment and escalating violence. On February 18, 2025, Stephen Milner was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. The courtroom echoed with emotion as Tanya Fandrich, Kenny's widow, delivered a powerful victim impact statement. Calling Milner a monster, Tanya expressed her frustration that repeated warnings from her and Kenny had not been taken seriously. All you had to do was stop. Hear me clearly when I say you're a vengeful, deceptive, manipulating, self-serving, aggressive, hateful, lying predator, and all you had to do was stop, she said, her words laying bare the pain left in the wake of his actions.